You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the Disney.
Well, there you are. I can see all you guys out there getting ready to listen to some great Six Screens programs tonight. Well, I'm Rick Farron here in the control panel in Massachusetts. And our first program, we call it the Icebreaker. It's Anne Marie. She'll be coming in from Northern California. And boy, I'll tell you what, Anne Marie, she's going to be talking somewhat about freedom tonight. And how are you guys feeling free? Slavery, of course, is what we were in when we were in the Watchtower. But now you can feel free, right? I do. Anne Marie does. And I'm sure most of you guys listening in tonight. So why don't you stay with us? We're going to bring Anne Marie on right now. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my brother Rick.
Well,
How's it going over
Anne
there?
Marie, it's good to hear from you tonight. You're sounding good. You're sounding a little better. Boy, you were really under the weather there last week.
Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time, though. Well, it's always good for another Six Screen Saturday. I'm always so grateful.
Well, I'm looking forward to it tonight, Anne Marie. It's going to be a great program. We're going to have, I believe, we're going to have some some new guests coming in tonight. I'm just feeling it. I go on that Reddit forum as you do, and in the last month, I believe it was, they have 2,000 more people listening in. It's either in the last month or the last 2 months. So 2,000 people that I say listening in, but I mean posting and writing comments. So that shows us more and more people are leaving the dangerous cult, Anne Marie, that you and I are involved with.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad, and it's getting more and more exciting because the more that are waking up, the more are waking up, and it's so wonderful.
Well, I'll tell you what. No, no, I like the way you said that. That the more that are waking up, the more that are waking up. That sounds like a little bit of word salad there, but I get the gist. It's true. The more that are waking up, they're waking others up as well.
No doubt. It's kind of like something you catch. A lot of being in the organization was the belief that this is God's organization, the only true religion, the place of safety, the ark of salvation, Jehovah speaks through the faithful slave, and this is the only safe place in the whole world. Well, in the last few years, a lot of that fantasy has been chipped away by the reality becoming more and more public, not only on the internet, not only on YouTube, where people have been brave enough to share their stories, and so many echo other stories. These people don't even know each other, but on actual national television like A&E and NBC, Dateline, and so on, you can't shut up the truth. You can't shut up the truth.
No, you can't. You can't, and then that's exactly what's happening now. Is it's being exposed, and they're more tarnished now, Anne Marie, than they ever have been. They are hemorrhaging. It's unreal what we're witnessing when it comes to the Watchtower collapsing. So what's on your mind tonight? What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I want to talk about freedom versus slavery. And I don't mean physical freedom and physical slavery as much as I'm referring to emotional and mental freedom and emotional and mental slavery. And it's just something that I want to consider tonight. I'd like to try to get through as much as I can, and of course invite others to share their thoughts, their experiences, and their opinions. But I'd like to stay on subject if possible, because it's kind of hard when I'm trying to talk about one thing and somebody comes in and starts talking about something completely off track. And well, I appreciate everybody's comments. Sometimes it throws me off. So I'm really hoping to really get through this, what I've prepared, freedom versus slavery, for all of us touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower. what I'd like to do. Well, I want to welcome everyone, as I always like to welcome everyone, to another Six Screen Saturday. Six Screen Saturday I consider such a blessing. I used to feel so blessed when I went to the assemblies, the circuit assemblies, the district conventions, the international conventions. I used to even be so appreciative of going to the meetings because I truly believed I was in Jehovah's house. I truly felt surrounded by the whole association of brothers as they taught us in those days. And I had no idea I was in a cult. So there are a lot of things when we do wake up and we come out. There are a lot of things we still need to face, some things to deal with, to learn how to cope with. And today I want to consider freedom versus slavery. As a side note, before I get into freedom versus slavery, I want to do a little note on mental slavery. Mental slavery is a state of mind where discerning, being able to discern between freedom and enslavement is twisted. Like the Watchtower really twisted our ability to recognize or to see the difference between freedom and enslavement, where one becomes trapped by misinformation about oneself. That's where the twisting comes from. We become trapped by misinformation about our own self, doubting our own thinking, our own thought processes, our own opinions. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. That's why our cult, the Watchtower that we came from, didn't keep us in a compound like David Koresh or Jonestown, because, as it says, I did research. When you control a man's thinking, and we know Watchtower does, you do not have to worry about what he does or how he lives or where he lives. Mental slavery is far more sinister than physical slavery because the chains are invisible, even to the slave. I want to get into a little comparison, freedom versus slavery. And in this particular part, I'm not really focusing on physical slavery. Of course, we all know that's obvious. Now, two columns, freedom, another column of slavery. On freedom, we have freedom of mind. If we're under slavery, we do not have freedom of mind. In freedom, we have freedom to think for ourselves, freedom to just think. And we're under slavery, we do not have freedom to think. If we're free to express our thoughts and our opinions without fear. When we're under slavery, we're not free to express our own honest opinions or thoughts. We're afraid. In freedom, we're free to be honest, because I think honesty is one of the biggest, most wonderful parts of being free, is to feel absolutely free to be truly honest. When you're under slavery, you never feel free to be honest. In freedom, you're free to choose your own belief system. When you're under slavery, you are not free to choose your own belief system. You believe what you're told to believe. You don't question. You just shut up, don't question, believe what you're told, and then when you're told that whoever's ruling you has gotten new understanding, well, you just better adjust your thinking and don't ask questions. Just obey, keep your mouth shut, and keep on serving whatever cult you're serving. When you're in freedom, you're free of fear. You're free of what others can do to you. You're free of not living up to others' expectations and how they might react, because you don't choose to live up to their expectations. But when you're under slavery, you feel forced to obey and to coincide or to conform to others' expectations. Forced. When I was in the religion, I didn't even realize, I didn't feel like I had a choice, and I didn't even stop to think about it. I felt forced, that I had no choice but to obey what I thought was expected of me from everyone in the organization of Watchtower. Any other examples that I haven't brought out? I would like to offer anyone to hit *6. And any thoughts on what I've said so far about freedom, about slavery, about not feeling free to express your own thoughts?
Well, I'll jump in here, Anne Marie, for a second, and just to kind of be the icebreaker for you
Thank you.
tonight. Yeah, no, what you've got, there can be many different forms of enslavement. It doesn't mean that you have to be, locked up in a cell somewhere. Doesn't mean you have to have shackles around your feet. But it can also be emotional slavery. It can be mental slavery. It can be spiritual slavery. And when we were in the Watchtower, that's what it is and was. We look back now and we say, was it really? Yeah, it is. We can see it so easily now. But when we were involved with that group, it was very hard to see the forest through the trees. And they have a certain ingredient, whether it's hypnosis, whether it's some type of mind control that we don't quite understand, but something. The Watchtower has some glue, some secret glue to keep everyone so loyal and so close to one another and enabling them to stay close to the organization and not to see any flaws at all within that group. It's amazing.
Well, it's like the old Star Trek thing they said, you have been absorbed. It's hive mind. You think alike, you process alike, you react alike, you defend alike. You're not your own person. Your brain doesn't belong to you. And sadly, part of the programming is you actually believe that cult beliefs, that Watchtower rhetoric that you spout in reaction to defending the cult. Anybody pushes one of those Watchtower buttons, every dedicated Watchtowerite will automatically go into their programming, and it's a scary thing to see. But from where they're coming from, they feel perfectly normal. They will tell you that their beliefs are their beliefs alone. They're not programmed. This is from their own heart, their own mind, but they don't realize that they are spouting the programming. And if you look back on your own life, I look back on my own life in the witnesses, and I recognized myself and I went, oh my God, I was just like that. Any other comments? Thank you so much, Rick. So let's go on.
Yeah, hello, Anne-Marie.
Yes, hi. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you doing?
Good. What's going on with you, Ken?
Well, I'm kind of running around, back and forth a little bit, kind of busy and so forth. I'll make my announcement first, then my comment. Okay, I reestablished, of course, for a couple of weeks ago, I reestablished contact with Jay, but I didn't reestablish contact with him again. He's having phone troubles. He's holding his own. He's doing okay. I wanted to make some effort to get in touch with him this week here, but it's just been too busy for me. I got kind of a big schedule. I got a bunch of doctor's appointments and everything. And then I'm still a volunteer driver, and I'm taking some other people for doctor visits too. So it's kind of busy. It's kind of busy and all that. So, well, be that as it may, I will keep trying to get a hold of Jay again. And by the time next time I call in someplace, I will probably have some updated information. But he's okay for now and holding his own. So,
thank you so much.
Excuse me, not here. Just a second. Okay, now for number 2 here, a comment on what you're talking about here. Years ago in the 1800s and the 1900s and all that, even the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people were kind of religiously ignorant or spiritually ignorant. Another word you can put on it and so forth. Somebody come along with a big fancy speech, or a nice new book or something like that that looked good. They read it, they bought it right away, bought everything hook, line, and sinker, in other words. And that happened quite a bit, especially in the 1900s and that. And that's how the Watchtower got its grip on people and so forth. Nobody knew what the Watchtower Society was. But they were nothing but an ecclesiastical tyrant, dictator, hiding behind the guise of being the true religion, and the religion that really believes in God, and the religion that can really get you to believe in God, and a religion that can really make you change your life. Yeah, does it ever change your life from bad to worse, as we found out down the road and so forth. And as you mentioned here, a while ago, it's a form of slavery. Yeah, they wanted you to peddle Watchtower and Awake magazines and their literature till you drop, and trying to tell you that that's what you have to do. But again, Orthodox Christianity never taught that kind of stuff. So it was all made up, and it was all fabricated and all that, and they were able to brainwash the people, to believe in something that was really not, that was really not pursuant to Orthodox Christianity. And that's what the Watchtower Society did. And not only that, we find out that it's even worse than what we thought it was. We find all kinds of fraud, abuse, corruption, and especially the most disturbing revelations now that come to the surface was the pedophilia, the rape, incest, and you just name it right across the board, sexual immorality, in other words. And so it's really outrageous. And then not only that, this organization still keeps on going. So it's really outrageous.
Yeah, it definitely is outrageous. Yeah. Is there any more? Do you have any more thoughts to share?
Oh, yeah. One more thing I want to share with you right now, and I hope everybody. I was going on the internet and everything like that, and some more good news there. Just like we're doing right now, the XJWs trying to reach out to all the JWs and getting them out of there. They've got a similar movement now starting up in the Amish community. So that's good news to kind of break the backs of these, these enthralling cults that have been dominating this, society for just much too long. And not only that, as I mentioned time after time, Watchtower Society puts themselves above the laws of God, puts themselves above the laws of the land, puts themselves above the U.S. Constitution of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience and thought. And they make their own rules and regulations and so forth. So they're a lawless criminal organization is what they are.
Oh, so true and well said, Ken. Okay, does anyone have any more thoughts, or I will get back to you?
Okay, well, we'll say goodbye for now, and I'm going to keep on listening as much as I can. I'm going to go visit my dog right now, and I'll definitely be keeping my ear to the telephone. So we'll talk to you a little bit later. God bless and be with you all.
Oh, God bless you as well, Ken. Yeah. Okay, is there anyone that would like to comment or have a question or something to add? Star 6.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
And Marie, this is under the radar.
Well, about time. I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. I just wanted to mention one small thing. When Rick was talking about hypnotizing, do you know what came to my mind? What came to my mind is if you watch Joel Osteen on TV, he's got like this world thing that slowly spins around. Watchtower has the same thing. Yeah, when you watch Watchtower online, they have the same type of thing that spins slowly around. So that's the first thing that came to my mind when Rick was talking about the hypnotizing.
Right. Right.
That's
So,
all.
no, you're so right. But one thing that is different is that while Joel Osteen points to the love and the freedom and the joy and how the Lord takes care of us, Watchtower is using their hypnotic mind control techniques to get us to swallow the twisting of God's word and the twisting of the meaning of different scriptures to weave into this twisted tapestry of quote unquote truth that is not in any way supported by God's word. It's just amazing. And they just sit there and with glazed over eyes and swallow it, and they all clap when they're supposed to. And it's like after the meeting, especially after a session at the convention, everybody would be like, oh, wasn't that so wonderful? Oh, what a great talk. Oh, what a great study. But nobody ever seems to know what they just learned. What are they excited about? They never remember. They
Hello?
just feel good. Yes.
Hi, Anne-Marie. This is Constance. Hi, honey. How are you?
Oh, hi, Constance. How are you?
Good, love. I'll be brief because I know you have a lot you want to cover. I just wanted to say I love the topic. I think it's excellent. And, any kind of slavery in any form is horrendous. But Watchtower uses, as you've mentioned, the mind control. And it's just so crippling and paralyzing. And, Watchtower's mode of operandi is basically to take people from the time they're in the cradle to the time they're in the grave. And what's so sad is many people who are in and they've been in for years and years, and we know how that goes, they don't even realize that they're in bondage. They don't even realize that they are in spiritual bondage, and it's really sad. But I love your show, honey. I think what you have to say is a lot. And the beautiful thing I was going to say is when people do wake up, there is a tremendous amount of freedom. Because if you're in any kind of bondage, any kind of abuse, any kind of slavery, anything of that nature, you have absolutely no freedom. You have no freedom. All of your rights have been taken away, and you're just basically a puppet or a slave to, whether it's your husband or your wife or your partner or your marriage or whatever the case, or your religion or the cult or whatever. So people need to really wake up. This has nothing to do with God. God's all about love, grace, and mercy. This is all oppression and very demonic. So thank you, honey.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and I appreciate that. Is there anyone that's itching to share a comment? Okay, I'm going to try to get through this. I'm doing the show, and I'm also having to cook. So please forgive me. I want to get back on track one moment. Sorry, I'm still coughing. Good mental health is characterized by having personal freedom to think and to make our own choices. And that might sound really juvenile, but when I was in Watchtower, it never occurred to me to even realize that I was not free to make my own choices at all. So, freedom is extremely important for good mental health. Personal freedom involves being free to form our own choices, to have our perceptive powers trained through use, to make sure of all things, to make our own choices and decisions for our own lives. That comes under freedom, not under slavery. Now, unbalanced freedom, or going too far, swinging too far to the left or right, having too much freedom without boundaries is also detrimental to our mental health. We have to be balanced. We need to be balanced because and we didn't have any balance in Watchtower, right? Now, I found this from Oprah.com. She was interviewing a psychiatrist. I didn't get his name. But he wrote a book called Guilt, Shame, and Anxiety. The book is called Guilt, Shame, and anxiety. And I include the word fear because there is a lot of fear when you're in Watchtower. He says that there are 3 steps to help liberate yourself from these feelings of shame, anxiety, guilt, and fear. 1 is to identify your negative emotions. You don't want to concentrate on why and how and boo-hoo and your sad story and who did what to you and who said what to you and the pain that you're in, but to simply identify your negative emotions. Because most of us live with so much guilt, so much shame, so much fear, so much anxiety, and these are just so painful that we will do almost anything to ward them off. You're overwhelmed by them. And add to this, you're already in that state usually when you get to fellowship. So now, when you're really down and beat down and lost, you get to have the added burden of being shunned by everyone who supposedly loved you. We may be afraid to make decisions. We may be afraid because we're trying to avoid more shame. We're trying to avoid getting more guilt or more anxiety or more fear. We need to practice identifying our negative emotions. We need to practice asking ourselves if these serve you. If you're feeling fear, it's usually all-consuming. If you're feeling anxiety, it's usually all-consuming. If you're feeling guilt or shame, it's usually it takes you over, right? Ask yourself, first, identify your negative emotions, whatever it is, fear or anxiety or shame or guilt. Ask yourself if these feelings actually serve you. Because if they don't serve you, get rid of it. One moment. The next step, once you've identified the feelings, you've asked yourself, does this serve me? You can choose to reject being compliant with whatever thoughts or emotions that are not serving you. If they're not serving you, you can say, oh hell to the no. You don't have to go there. You can speak firmly to your enslaving negative emotions. You can say, I do not want to be acting in slavery. You can speak firmly to your enslaving negative emotions. You can say, I will not be paralyzed by you. I will not allow you. I will not allow you to misdirect me. I refuse to be controlled by you. That's fear, shame, guilt, or anything else that makes you feel bad about yourself. Negative emotions keeps us from being truly free. It keeps us from being able to act. It keeps us from being truly free and act like unwanted house guests. These negative emotions act like unwanted house guests who repeatedly come back. You know those kind of people that just keep showing up because you're so nice? Well, these bad emotions are like unwanted house guests that keep coming back until we take a stand and we start to emphatically say no to these negative emotions and thoughts and feelings and really mean it. Not feeling guilty, not apologizing, no. Because these negative emotions, however they were implanted, forget the where and the why and the because, wherever these negative emotions come from, they will continue to impede your freedom until we start standing up to them firmly and consistently. Negative emotions and feelings negative emotions and feelings and thoughts, those are the ones that get you. Negative emotions and feelings and thoughts are like bullies. You all know what bullies feel like. Negative emotions and feelings and thoughts are like bullies who need to be dealt with. The more they get a handle on you, the more power you give them, the more they're going to control you. And you know it's true. They will do this to you until you stand up to them. They have to be dealt with squarely. Stand up to them. You can do it. These emotional bullies feel entitled to intimidate us. They push us harder and harder, and they take over our lives just like the JWs did in the Watchtower. Now, so here's my final thought. In order to be free, okay? In order to be free, we must make the personal decision to break free. To break free from what enslaves us. I don't want to waste time, again, on the how and the why and the because and who did what and who said what and boo-hoo, the sad story. It's just going to keep you down. Believe me, it will. I've been there. We must decide to stand up, because to stand up is the only way to be free. It takes work. It takes resolve. And it takes commitment. But freedom is truly worth it. And it really is up to us. And we can do it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, good evening, Anne-Marie. I'm really enjoying your program, and I think it's very apropos to bring out that guilt is the number one killer. It's the number one factor in suicide, and it's the number one factor in divorces and things of that nature. And the Watchtower is a master at putting guilt on people. If you don't go out and feel service, you will be blood guilty. If you skip the meeting after Jehovah provided a banquet of spiritual food for you, then you're slapping Jehovah in his face. They can come up with a trillion different things that's going to put you in depression. And so you're going to meetings not because you want to, or you're going out into service not because you want to, you have to. And anytime you have to do something that you don't want to do, that's depression. So it keeps on a vicious cycle. I'm just so glad for your program. I think you did a really good intro with explaining to people how they can get the hell out of that damn organization and get rid of the guilt. Yeah, you have to take. I'm not going to be. Yeah, I did something wrong in the 80s. And if I allow myself to pay for it 20, 40 years later, then that's on me. And, I've gotten to understand that. It's taken me a lot of years to do that, because I still see myself as the person that cheated on a good woman. Yeah, I did that, and it was certainly wrong. But you know what? I'm not going to live in that guilt or that shame any longer, because I'm done with it. I'm giving it back to Satan, who took it, who's the master of it. So anyway, your program is outstanding. I hope people are really listening close to what you said. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dick. I never realized that those emotions and those recurring thoughts, I call it, it goes spinning around in your head, those the guilt, the shame, the anxiety, the fear, and especially not having the freedom to say what I really feel or think, and somehow feeling guilty because what I thought like somehow made me feel like I had to be ashamed of myself. You know, we weren't living in any kind of freedom. And so I just wanted to get away from, I don't care about the why and the because. I don't care who did what. It's not about the why and the because. It's what am I doing right now about it? If that any kind of thing comes up, is it serving me? That's what I ask myself. Does this serve me? Because if it doesn't, I'm like, I'm out of here, dude, and so are you. I will not allow it. I won't. I don't believe in it. And it helps me. Anybody else have any thoughts? Well, thank you so much for chiming in. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, honey. Yeah, your show is hi, honey. Your show is excellent for sure. I was going to say, you know, we know that we are made in God's image. So if we're made in God's image, you know, where does the shame, the guilt, and all of that come from? Okay, because it certainly is not godly. You know, God is a God of love. He made us in His image. And once you really recognize the games, the manipulation, the control, these are the tentacles, the mechanism Watchtower uses to keep us all in line. Once you really wake up to that, it takes courage. And you have to say to yourself, you know what? I'm worth a heck of a lot more than what Watchtower is saying that I am, and all the mind games that they're playing on me. I mean, there is no surprise why so many JWs have mental illness issues. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And if you are a pretty healthy, mentally healthy person, if you're in that organization long enough, it will destroy your mental health. So anyway, honey, people just need to have the courage. They need to have the self-respect. They need to say, I'm done with this. I'm moving on. I deserve a better life. This is nothing to do with God or the Bible. This organization's controlled by Satan, the devil. So thank you, honey. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie.
Oh my God, thank you so much for bringing that out. You know, the more I think about things, the more I realize there are so many facets to being touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower. And then there's each particular facet has facets of their own and components. And it's actually more complicated than I ever really realized. So I really appreciate your bringing that out, Constance. Is there anybody else that would like to share their thoughts, any questions, any experience, any opinions? All welcome, *6. Well, I'm definitely one for freedom. You know, I heard Mikey from Kim and Mike on YouTube. He said, you know, just about the most courageous thing you can do when you've been raised in a cult, raised to believe in the cult, about the most courageous thing you can do is to think for yourself. And at first I thought, well, that doesn't sound so courageous. Yeah, it is. To really give yourself permission to think for yourself can be a scary thing when all of your life you were taught, you know, that somehow it makes you like Satan, or that you're showing disrespect to Jehovah because you're disrespecting the governing body. What are you going to do with that thought? So, yeah, it definitely does take courage. It takes courage of mind and heart and spirit to think for yourself, or to even try to begin to think for yourself, to do the research, to do your due diligence, you know, to realize that there's more, that you do have the right to use the brain God gave you. Anybody have any thoughts? I'm just talking and talking. Anybody have any thoughts? *6. Doors open, floors open, phone lines are open. Has anybody had any experience on trying to deal with these kind of emotions? I'm sure a lot of us have had to deal with those feelings of guilt. So, yeah.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Yes, Yeah, let's let the sister go first, please.
Oh, go ahead.
And
Emery?
yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Oh, hi.
Go ahead, sister.
Oh, I just really love your program, and I really love how you're expressing yourself, and I can just feel I can feel your compassion and kindness towards us as you're speaking to all of us. I dealt with some serious negative emotions the last couple of days when I nearly got drug into another cult. And so my husband and I have lived in the same area for many years, and there's some old friends of ours, some of whom went to high school with my husband, and we've known these people for about 30 years, and they're familiar to us. They have nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses or anything like that, and one of them works for he's a contractor, so we wanted to hire his services like usual, but he has found himself into a new cult. It's not a Jehovah's Witness cult, and I don't want to mention the name because if anybody's listening is part of this particular preacher or pastor who's become well known, I don't want to begin an argument, and I know we're not supposed to talk about that stuff on right now, but what happened was he only hires now people that are in this cult, and I didn't know it was a cult, and so I'm on the phone trying to get his services and get them to come over and do measurements for what we need to have them done. And like I said, he's worked on our home for many years, and he was really down on his luck, working for his dad and into drugs and everything, and going through different marriages. And my husband and I have always felt compassion for him because we know the family, the father. Well, he has quit doing that, got remarried, and then he got drugged into this cult. And anyway, so I was just taken back when I called him, and I said, oh, thank you for the bid and everything like that. And I called specifically on our home. And my husband being at work for several days, I said, look, you usually deal with my husband, but you'll have to deal with me because he's at work and we need to have this work done. And he didn't stick to the subject, but he got off on this, oh, my wife and I, we're doing this and we're going to this church and that. And I go, oh, what church are you going to? Oh, it's this church. And I can't name the name, but it sounds like a non-denominational church. And I have been honestly looking for a church that isn't cultic-like or any of the sort, because I have these really very raw emotions still from the abuse that I sustained as being a Jehovah's Witness, and still do have those feelings. And so I went down this his whole entire spiel to say, oh, how I need to go to his church and how he'll be given a talk and all this stuff. And I immediately, based on familiarity and trust, I said, oh, yeah, I'll go, without thinking. So then his worker comes. Hello?
No, I just said, oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. So his worker comes to my home, and my heart is beating through my chest because I just downloaded all of this belief system that they had in this small cult where I live. And I didn't know it was a cult, so I started reading into it. And it was so familiar to the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I thought, whoa, wait a second. My head started spinning, Anne-Marie and listeners. I got so scared because of the trauma and the humiliation and the shame and all of these feelings of being shunned and all this stuff. I thought, oh no, not going to go down this path again. And so the gentleman comes, and his worker, who was also part of this thing, I didn't know it was a cult yet, answered a few of my questions, and I could tell her was very sharp, very defensive over his church. And I thought, why is he so defensive? I'm only asking a couple questions. And I went into it. I said, look, sir, the only reason I'm asking you questions about your church is because I was part of a cult. And I said, I'm going to share with you, sir, that I was part of the Jehovah's Witness organization. He goes, oh, so was I. I wasn't a witness, but they came to my door when I was a baby Christian, and he shared about his dealings with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I thought, oh, and he goes, oh, I can't wait to see you on Sunday. So then I thought, something didn't sit still. And it's because of this, I think it's because of this show the years of being on this platform, listening to Rick and to Anne-Marie, the twins, and everybody else who has been so helpful to me, that I was able to identify the markings of yet another cult. And so when he left, I had these feelings that came up over me that I haven't felt in years, that I felt immediately upon realizing that I was going to die in Armageddon, before I realized that it was in fact a cult with the Jehovah's Witnesses. All these old emotions came back that I thought that I was relieved from, and I didn't think that they could resurface again. And they did this week. I feel like I have had my entire spirit sucked out of me, and I didn't even go to their church yet. And it's tomorrow, and I know what's going to happen. They're going to contact me and go, "Are you going to let us work on your house?" And not only do I feel enmeshed and feel so scared, I'm literally in prayer right now, wondering, God, do you want me to tell these people what I know I should be telling them and warn them, and take the wrath of them shunning me in my community now? Because this other cult is in my community, and I know many of them, and lose these friends because basically that worker and our old dear friend, who we go way back, if I tell them that I don't believe your theology and I can base it and literally back it up with scripture, like I can literally show you that freedom is in Christ Jesus, and I do live by faith and grace, I'm afraid that now I'm going to get shunned again by more. And so I'm in this really odd feeling right now as I'm listening to you, Anne-Marie. It's horrible. And I thought I was matured from that. But I do feel like I don't have the strength to stand up to these men that came to my home with such authority and what they knew. And anyways, I know I'm sounding a little bit harsh. You're hearing, you're questioning. I thank God for these emotions, though. I thank God for them. Anger is an emotion. It keeps us from harm. I thank God for the anxiety that I'm feeling right now, because let it be a lesson learned that my gut is right. God gave me this gut. When we have these emotions, when we were in the hall, we ignored them because we thought that we were going to die in Armageddon. So I'm not going to ignore them. But what I am going to do is I'm going to refrain from doing what I personally want to do right now, which is to send them a text with all the facts about their cult so I could try to save them. But I'm not, because it's not my job. Self-care and taking care of myself right now is the most important thing. I don't think I want to deal with any more shunning in my community. And God will forgive me for that. I don't think it's my duty at this present moment to do that. If God puts it on my heart, he'll give me the courage and the strength to do that. But right now, take care of myself. It sounds selfish, but that's what I want to do right now. Hey, love you, Anne-Marie. I love you. Everybody else that I love you. You know my voice. I know, and I know your voices. Just like Jesus, he knows us.
Well,
sorry, I'm not supposed to preach. I'm not supposed to preach. Sorry.
You're not preaching. One thing that I'm really trying to get away from, and I'm still working on it myself, is 1, apologizing, 2, the feeling that I have to explain, and 3, the fear of being bluntly honest to others with how I feel, because I don't want this to happen. I don't want them to feel, unkindly or unfriendly toward me. And that is part of slavery. It is part of mental and emotional slavery. I remember so well when Jesus basically said, I give you my peace. My peace I leave with you. The enemy wants to steal our peace. So no matter what the, details are, whatever it is, if it's stealing your peace, we know what to do about it. Even if, there are people in Saudi Arabia and all those other lands that are coming to Christ and getting their throat slit and their head cut off, but they're at peace because they are not going to wiggle around and compromise. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I have learned personally, no matter how hard it is, and we don't want confrontation, especially when we were in Watchtower. We go along to get along. We were trained to perform and conform. And even though we get out of it, we still have that, gee, and, I don't want to upset anybody. And, oh, but they've been so nice. And if I say this and I don't know. And, we try to tiptoe around it. But the bottom line, and I had to tell this to these Mormons who were the sweetest guys, who I allowed to come to my house and share their thing with me. I didn't know at the time that I had been in a cult. I was newly out of Watchtower. Never knew it was a cult. And these people were so sweet. But on the third visit, by the time that third visit was coming up, and I started to watch their VHS, they gave me some VHS tapes to watch. This was way back about 35, 36 years ago. And I had a feeling I was being sucked in. I could see myself sucked in. And they came to the door, and I knew I had to do what I had to do. I couldn't explain it. I stood them at the door. I wouldn't let them come in. I said, I'm so sorry. I can't see you more. Please don't come back. And they're like, but what happened? What? Please, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but I just know I can't see you more. Please don't come back, please. And I had to shut the door in their face because they wouldn't take no for an answer. And I know they were genuinely hurt, but I had to do it.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself, Anne-Marie, and anybody listening. It leads to illness, and like the other gal said, mental illness. It leads to when we see things that scare us, it gives us a physiological response. So it is it's common sense to realize that when we're scared or fear of man and what he can do to us, it does bring about eventually a very soft kill upon our bodies. I say the word kill, it sounds very harsh, but it eventually does. It leads to cancer. It leads to intestinal disorders and heart attacks and everything else. And it's like, so, and what's so sad to me is I can see the writing on the wall with these people, but if they could just do their research, if they could just simply look up their pastor's name, this big pastor's name, and see the offshoots that he's created, and that he's been successfully sued for a gal committing suicide that from his organization, that they can see it for themselves. It's all out there. There are ministries that are exposing, like Rick Farron and you and the others who do this. I mean, you guys are laboring to bring people out, to get people out of these cults and give them a choice. They don't have to believe in Jesus. You just guys want them to be healthy and to be mentally and physically strong. And that has been my experience for over a decade, listening and participating. And, to see that there's even more cults out there. And what really drew me and what I'm so disgusted about is, in my opinion, this cult that they try to drag me into it and guilt me. He literally tried to guilt me using the scriptures in my home when he was here to do a bid. And so I basically said, it sounds like your religion is your church is very works oriented, like the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I knew that when that gentleman left, there is a question mark in his brain wondering, why is this woman so courageous? It did cost me, though. And I thought, why is there the look on his face of fear? It's because he's afraid to go back to his church and tell them what I said for him to be disfellowshipped. Because when I looked into his religion, or his church, which I now know is a religion, I thought it was just an innocent little church. It's something Bible church. So it's extremely misleading. But the major organization behind this little offshoots, which are in all of our communities, sadly, is worse than the Jehovah's Witnesses, because at least Jehovah's Witnesses know how strange and kind of creepy they are, or we were. And I'm sure I was probably creepy to others. Hopefully not that creepy, but this one is even more aligned with what normal people act like. And so at least people know with the Jehovah's Witnesses we're a little bit odd. We were odd. But with this one, it's really aligned with what looks normal as far as Bible teaching. Oh, goodness. There's more cults out there. People beware. Sorry.
Well, personally, I don't want to muddy the waters. I don't want to muddy the waters. I don't want to get into religions or other religions or what's the cult or what's. I am talking about this whole show today was simply, I'm a nuts and bolts, keep it simple, stupid kind of person. I am concentrating on freedom emotional and mental, versus slavery, emotional and mental. I don't care about the why, the because, the who, the what for, the boo story, how long, how short, what I got into, what I suffered. I don't care. All I care about is, what do I want? What do I want? Because I'm responsible for my happiness. And when I remember that Jesus said, I give you my peace, anything that steals your peace, that's your barometer. Anything that does not savor that peace, when you don't have calmness and peace, devil doesn't care what it is. He doesn't care if it's fear or lack of money or a fight with your boyfriend. He doesn't care what it is. He just wants to make sure you don't have your peace, because when you don't have your peace, you're not in your place of peace and balance. You're not centered, which means you can be kiltered, you can be knocked over, you can be fooled, you can be tricked, you can be led away. So let's concentrate on personal responsibility. Don't worry about what the other guy's going to do or what he's going to say or what he might think or what he might
Thank you. And stop entertaining it. I need to stop entertaining that type of thing. When I feel a lack of peace, don't even keep going down that path. Just exit quickly.
Exactly, which is why we're bringing out, if you feel fear, if you feel worry, if you feel anything, it's going to upset you. Stop. Be aware of what you're feeling and ask yourself a simple question. Does this serve me?
Right.
If it doesn't serve you, say, you're out of here.
Right. Even if it is that. Yeah, even if I am a bit ultra sensitive over, it used to be free where I could go to these places and check it out, before I check it out. Now I'm doing my research and checking things out before I step foot. I don't care if it's a church, a dealership, trying to buy a car. It doesn't matter. There's abusive people everywhere. And, and when you're used to it, you have to almost retrain your brain to recognize what abuse is and say, like you are trying to empower and encourage the audience to say no, even if it's something that the average person would stand. If somebody thinks, oh, you're too sensitive, you're just overly sensitive, so be it. It's me. Right now, that's how I feel. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you.
You're so welcome, because we have to remember that whatever everybody else's opinion is, they have every right to their opinion, their beliefs, but that's not the real point. The point is other people's feelings, expectations, criticisms, judgments, whatever. Other people's opinions do not define you. If you feel that you should do this, then that's what you do. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then that's what's right for you. It doesn't matter. It's what's right for you. It's called personal boundaries, personal choices, making personal decisions. That is part of mental and emotional freedom, and we cannot have emotional maturity unless we are really working on that, because it has nothing to do with what anybody thinks of you. It has nothing to do, and you don't want to compare yourself. You don't want to apologize. You don't want to explain.
I am so trying to stop saying I'm sorry. And, Anne-Marie, I find that the more, it is really hard. And, I'm finding when people reject the way you are, it doesn't matter what they feel. If you let it go, you actually, I know personally, I've been forming even better relationships and encounters with people now that I'm healed or healing. And so, and we're all in a stage of healing. Everybody has been traumatized by something, a school teacher, a church, a bad, relationship, and we've traumatized others, not realizing it. Or, I'm not a perfect person, but, just being human is, I'm just rambling at this point. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for your show right now. I really appreciate it. And thank you for letting me comment. And thank you. Yeah. So.
Well, you're a breath of fresh air, and you're never rambling. And there's never a need to think that somehow, you're rambling or you talk too much or this or that. because you're always bringing out something that somebody needs to hear. And don't forget, there are people who in the future will listen to what you just said. Anything that your heart is moving you to say it. You know, there's no critiquing. It's not like you're hurting somebody, you're being angry, you're not gossiping, you're not being judgmental. You're expressing your honest truth from your heart. And that is something so refreshing.
Thank you. Appreciate you so much. And just to let you know, I keep you and others from the show in my prayers. I do. I appreciate your hard work.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very, very sweet, very kind.
Mm-hmm.
How are we
Thank
doing
you
on
too.
time, my brother Rick?
Well, Anne Marie, we still got about, about 12, 15 minutes, yeah.
Okay, well, I want the sister who was speaking to feel free to jump back in if she would like to. Is there anybody else who would like to share or comment what the sister was talking about, or your own thoughts to share? Please feel free, *6. Anybody feel that they're doing well?
Yeah, hello, Ann.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got back in, had a nice visit with my dog and so forth, and got settled in a little bit. I listen as much as I can and so forth. Okay, the topic on enslaving, that on religious slavery that you got tonight, or religious enthronement. If we join a religion and so forth, in the past several years, the intention always was that it should improve our mental health. It should improve our morality. It should improve our overall attitude towards life and towards other people and towards our environment. Well, that's just to name a few and so forth. It should improve our life, in other words, and make our life so much better, not destroy it. But this cult right here, this Watchtower cult, you'll start going in this religion and so forth, and it'll sound so good, but pretty soon before you know it, it destroys your life. And that's not what religion should be all about. I don't care if it's a Christian religion or a non-Christian religion. That's not what it should be all about.
Jesus. Well, that's a good thought, Ken. And if you notice, I really wasn't focusing so much on religion, but of course, religion has had a lot to do with it. And there's so many forms of slavery, and the mental and emotional slavery is the worst. Because, you know, they use propaganda. Propaganda is involved, whether it's religious or if it's commercial, or, you know, the push, well, you got to do this or else nobody will like you, you know. We're all pushed to conform and perform, you know, like the cliques in school, you know, or the cliques at work. It's really important to be able to recognize what true freedom mentally and emotionally is, and how important it is to true mental and emotional health.
Yeah, that's really something and so forth. Well, maybe this little bit of humor will cheer somebody up. Did you hear about this many years ago in the 60s and 70s about this minister who he became a preacher, but he never could finish his high school diploma. So he kept on praying hard and everything and so forth, and he decided he was going to go back to night school and everything and try to get his high school diploma. Yeah. And he was talking to a friend about it, and his friend says, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. He says, I'm getting that diploma this time. He says, I'm going to take my Bible, I'm going to do a Bible reading before class. He says, and I'm going to pray before class and everything. He says, and I think God is really going to be on my side. And this other guy says, no, he says, you better not do that. He says, because you can't do that in a public school. You can't take your Bible in there with you and read it and so forth. And you can't pray before class and so forth. So you better not do it. Well, okay, he says, I'll take that into consideration. So this preacher went over there anyway and everything like that. And he did the same thing and so forth. And finally he got his high school diploma and he got out of class and so forth. And he met his friend a little bit later. And he says, well, did you finally get your diploma? He says, oh, yeah, I sure did. He says, I got it in no time and so forth. And he says, I took my Bible to class every day. He says, and I said a prayer, he says, before each class and so forth. And the other guy says, sir, he says, you mean they didn't do anything to you? He says, no. He says, I had my shotgun along.
Whoa! Well, that's funny. You always come up with the good ones, Ken.
Yeah, well, it wasn't one of mine. It was one of them I heard several years ago, and I just thought about it again, so forth. They don't tell it too much anymore, but because now things have changed a little bit with some court rulings knocking down this nonsense that you can't take a Bible with you and you can't pray and so forth. Yeah, you can as long as it's not state mandated, but if you want to pray on it for yourself and if it's student-led or anything like that, you can do that all you want to. And also the time off ruling helped that a little bit too many years ago. So, which says that if you're in school and so forth and you have an emergency or you have a need that you want to see your minister and so forth, they got to let you go and give you time off to go and see him if you call him or if you want to walk over to the church or whatnot. So, well, I'll tell you what, if we got any more callers? Huh?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted anybody to know that they can feel free to have a comment or a share. You know.
Yeah, anybody, hit *6 if anybody wants to call. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear opinions and, you know, what they think or their share experience. But it is what it is, you know, with that.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Yes, please go ahead, brother.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to pop in real quickly, and I appreciate everything you've said, and it's kind of funny when you get more mature, especially after you've left, but when you talk about the dynamics of what it takes, I can understand in a spiritual sense, you don't want to give into narcissism and hedonism, but your points about setting boundaries as far as what you would allow to infiltrate your thinking ability. The crazy thing was the witnesses told us to think and to think logically and rationally and with any, you know, cognitive thought. They taught that was a bad thing, but I remember the scripture saying, serve God with your whole body, mind, and heart, and to guard your thinking faculties. The fact that you said there comes a point when you don't take the abuse or the manipulation and you make a boundary where you say, no one's going to infiltrate this part of my thinking that says you can't do what you did before. And that with so much cult-mindedness where people get this idea, and I was in the same thing, you live in it for 10, 15 years, and you think it's par for the course to have a group of men or a body of elders or a dictate by the governing body tell you how to think and why. I just appreciate the fact that you're saying that there comes a time when you have to say, this is what I won't allow to infiltrate my peace and my ability to wake up the next morning and be either a competent wife, husband, friend, whatever. I just wanted to say thanks for that because having ideological possession over your own mind is essential, and it's a shame that the witnesses took that away from us for so long. But
and we didn't even realize it, huh? What a concept that we could actually use the brain God gave us.
Right. Corn dogs. I can't eat S-items.
Oh, thank you.
Can they eat them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you were giving it to me. Sorry, my neighbor just came over. Okay, well, it was a great thought. You still there?
On here.
Hello?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, my neighbor just popped over.
No, that's right.
I just like to keep it simple. It's probably a good thing I'm not real complicated. If something doesn't feel right, no, that just doesn't work for me. Thank you so much.
Right.
But we were taught to be so subservient and so humble and so submissive, and you know, to think for yourself is independent thinking. And you know, Jesus, I mean, you know, Satan was the first independent thinker, and he, you know, he was the enemy of God. So if you're an independent thinker, then you're like Satan and deserve to die.
Right.
I mean,
which was just before you wrap things up, I just wanted to say, and I know we've talked about this before. I've talked about it with Linda. Ironically, even though this is a patriarchal organization that's oppressive, the crazy irony is they've actually emasculated the men and the elders even more so than some of the sisters, because what they've taken away from the men to be natural born husbands, fathers, they've taught men, abandon your wife if she goes against the thinking of the organization, abandon your daughters. And to me, the minute an organization tells a man to let go of his wife and daughter in the name of an ideology spiritually, they're more emasculated than some of the oppression that we've seen happen to the sisters by the men. So it's a shame that they're actually more beta males than the oppressive patriarchs that they might come across as.
No, you're exactly right. And you know, I know the women have been kept down, but the men were totally emasculated. Come on. Come on. Okay, I'll bring you back. Sorry, I have a little 2-year-old who doesn't want to get changed. Go, 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 go. So the whole thing basically is they wanted to take you over. They were going to tell you how you were going to run your household. And it's worse because you're the man. You're supposed to be the head of the house. And they're going to tell you how to run your house. When you're the man, that's your house. You pay for it.
Right.
But they're going to tell you how to run your wife, run your kids, how to dress, what kind of car you can buy. What the heck is up with that?
Yep. Yep. And just one last comment, Anne-Marie.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make one last comment.
Please do.
Before me and my ex-wife divorced, and I don't bring it up as a point of gossip, but my ex-wife that was born and raised a witness, she had affairs, and eventually I was able to divorce her scripturally, even though I was already inactive and never came back. But the elders were pressing me to give them details about her infidelity, which she told me about. And I said, guys, we're divorced. I'm not spewing the beans. Anything she says to you is up to her. But they were offended because I wouldn't be the typical man to say, okay, well, my wife had so many affairs. I said, no. I want my ex-wife to be as happy as she can be. I'm not here to condone anything she did, but I'm not going to be the chump that's going to call you guys and say, you've got to meet with her tomorrow because she did this, this, and that. And even 5 years later, when she was disfellowshipped and had no one to talk to, her family, she was disfellowshipped, she called me and she said, you know what? By giving me 2 years of just freedom of mind, you let me sit back and think deeply about the choices I made and where I was and why. But she said, I just want to thank you. And I'm not saying that to signal. I'm just saying it meant something not to chump her out, because that wasn't my job.
Well, you know what? Good for you. And it's really disgusting how these elders, they condemn any kind of sexual feeling, have rules for the bedroom, but anything to do with sex, they want to know every detail. It's like, I call it spiritual pornography. It's like, what do? Take mental notes and then masturbate according to what they've heard? I mean, it's really not normal, especially for somebody.
And it's very creepy. And the one thing I told them, I said, don't hinge on whether or not my ex-wife had, physical immorality. Why don't we talk about my issues with the organization, why I'm inactive? Can we talk about that? They said no. Then I said, no, I'm not going to talk to you about my ex-wife and her personal choice as an adult. she can deal with that. She's a big girl.
Yeah.
She can deal with it. You know, it's just crazy. Everything's backwards.
Well, you know, when you realize they're not from God, I mean, good God, can you imagine Jesus or the apostles standing around worrying about how somebody had sex in the bedroom? I mean, I can't even imagine Jesus pulling, you know, the apostle Peter aside and said, you know, Peter, I'm really concerned about your wife. You know, her time's been slipping. All of it was just so stupid, and it's certainly not godly, and much less spiritual.
No, because like you said before, Emily, exactly.
Or
like you said before, everyone has a right to own their intellectual property. It's not my place to infringe myself, especially after getting divorced, and then insert myself into my ex-wife's issues, because the judicial meeting was open. I could have been a witness, and I said, I'm not testifying in your committee meeting. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, there you go.
And
you.
But that really bothered them, because I said, why don't you just let the universe unfold as it should? You know, human beings we're physical. We like good food. We like good intimacy. We like a lot of stupid things. And who am I to sit there and insert myself in a situation where I'm not even legally bound to this woman anymore? I just want her to be happy. That's it. You know?
Yeah, but they just want the juicy details. Don't you understand?
Well, I wasn't willing to do that. But anyway, I appreciate your time given to me, Anne-Marie. Really do.
Bless your heart, sweetie. I really love your comments. I love everybody's comments. I love this show because, boy, the more we think about it, the more that we're like, hey, yeah, what's up with that?
If we could only go back now, Anne-Marie, we could really have fun with them before we leave.
Perhaps. I'm still waiting for.
It's too late now.
I think we have enough. I think that we have enough material for a serious comedy on the road routine. When we think about it with logic and clarity of mind. I just don't have the talent for it. How are we doing on time, my brother?
Well, I guess, Anne-Marie, we come to the end of the road, so it looks like we're ready to go with the news. But, boy, you're getting a lot of people coming through here tonight. Lots of people speaking up, lots of comments on YouTube. Boy, you're doing a good job. Good girl, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone that came in. It's always you guys who call in and comment that make the show. Thank you all, and thank you so much, Rick.
Well, thank you. And boy, I'll tell you, I want to thank everyone for calling in as well. We're now going to go to JW World News. That's just going to take just a couple of minutes. Stay with us. YouTube will go off, but we'll be back in about 2 minutes. So don't go anywhere.